The old man's secret wasn't hidden in some forgotten scroll or whispered in a back alley. It was etched into the very fibers of his being, revealed with every breath he took, and ultimately through the deliberate, unyielding surrender of his last one. It was a secret so profound that, once truly grasped by his closest student, it didn't just illuminate the teacher's legacy, it shattered and reformed the student's entire world, forging a philosophy that would echo for millennia. Plato watched as Socrates, his revered mentor, drank the hemlock, and in that agonizing, profound final act, Plato didn't just witness a death, he witnessed the birth of his own destiny, understanding for the first time the true, terrifying, beautiful secret of living a life worth dying for. Athens, 399 BC, a city in turmoil, still reeling from the devastating Peloponnesian War, its pride wounded, its democracy fragile. The Golden Age was fading, and an unsettling undercurrent of suspicion and fear permeated the air. It was in this uneasy climate that Socrates, a man who saw himself as a gadfly to the Athenian state, found himself accused of impiety and corrupting the youth. He was not a warrior, nor a politician, but a philosopher whose weapon was relentless questioning, an incessant challenge to conventional wisdom. His secret, if one could call it that, was already blooming in the public square, a radical devotion to truth, no matter the cost. The charges were vague, yet damning. He did not believe in the gods of the state, and he introduced new deities. More insidious was the accusation that he led young men astray, making them question their elders, their traditions, their very society. Many Athenians, weary of dissent and longing for stability, saw Socrates as a dangerous disruptor. They didn't want to hear the uncomfortable truths his inquiries often uncovered. He stood before a jury of 501 fellow citizens, his bare feet planted firmly on the stone floor, his customary simple tunic a stark contrast to the flowing robes of his accusers. The stench of sweat and fear mingled with the sharp tang of olive oil burning in lamps, casting flickering shadows across the tense faces. He could have fled, he could have compromised. His friends, many of them influential and wealthy, offered to arrange his escape, to bribe the guards, to spirit him away to a comfortable exile. But Socrates refused. To flee, he argued, would be to invalidate everything he had taught, to abandon the principles he held dear. It would be to declare the laws of Athens unjust and to behave as if he were above them. His resolve was not born of pride, but of an absolute conviction in moral order, in the supremacy of reason and the pursuit of virtue. This was the first layer of his secret, an unflinching fidelity to his own conscience, even when that conscience was in direct conflict with the demands of the state. The trial itself became a masterclass in Socratic method, even as his life hung in the balance. He didn't plead for mercy, he lectured. He didn't express regret, he expressed conviction. He famously stated that he was doing Athens a service by stirring its citizens from their intellectual slumber, comparing himself to a stinging fly on the back of a sluggish horse. He spoke of the daemon, an inner voice or divine sign that guided him, which many mistook for a new god. He made it clear that if released, he would continue to philosophize, to question, to challenge. He believed that an unexamined life was not worth living, and he would not betray that belief. His defiance was not arrogant, but deeply principled, a terrifying purity of purpose that resonated with some and infuriated others. The verdict came swiftly, guilty. The vote was closer than many expected, but it was enough. The prosecution demanded the death penalty. At this point, Socrates was given the opportunity to propose an alternative punishment. Many expected him to suggest exile or a substantial fine. Instead, with a twinkle in his eye, he suggested that he should be honored with free meals at the Prytaneum, the city's public dining hall, a privilege usually reserved for Olympic victors and eminent citizens. His point was cutting. He believed his service to Athens was far greater than any athlete's. The audacious suggestion infuriated the jury, solidifying their decision for the ultimate penalty. This refusal to bow, to play the expected game, was another facet of his profound secret, a radical commitment to self-knowledge and integrity, even in the face of annihilation. The jury reconvened, and the final vote was even more decisive: death by hemlock. A hush fell over the court. Plato, then a young man, sat among the distraught students, his mind reeling. How could such a man, dedicated to truth and virtue, be condemned by the very city he sought to improve? The injustice burned, leaving a wound that would never fully heal, but also planting a seed of intellectual rebellion. He saw not a man defeated, but a man choosing his end, confirming his principles. The execution was not immediate. Athenian law dictated a delay until a sacred ship, which sailed annually to Delos, returned. This gave Socrates 30 precious days in prison. His friends, including Crito, visited him daily, their grief palpable. They begged him again to escape. They had the means, they had the connections, the plan was solid, the guard was already bribed. "Socrates," Crito pleaded, "think of your sons. How can you abandon them?" The air in the dank prison cell was thick with sorrow and the metallic scent of despair. You can almost feel the chill of the rough-hewn stone walls, the faint smell of stagnant water from a distant drain. But Socrates remained steadfast. He explained patiently, logically, why escape was impossible. He had lived under Athens' laws his entire life, benefited from them, raised his family under them. To break those laws now, simply because they turned against him, would be to act unjustly. It would be to undermine the very concept of law and order that allowed society to function. He would be committing a greater injustice by escaping than the one he faced. His commitment to justice was absolute, not conditional. This was the radiant core of his secret, a belief that true freedom lay not in escaping consequences, but in aligning oneself with moral truth, come what may. What would you have done in his place? Faced with an unjust sentence, with an easy path to freedom, would you have chosen principle over survival? It's a question that has echoed through the centuries, testing the mettle of countless individuals. Take a moment to consider how that choice might reflect on your own values. If this story has made you pause and reflect on the power of conviction, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your insights deepen this shared journey into history's most profound moments. The sacred ship returned. The final day arrived. The first rays of the Athenian sun painted the eastern sky, turning the clouds to streaks of rose and gold. But within the cold stone walls of the prison, a different kind of dawn was breaking. Socrates' wife, Xanthippe, arrived early with their 3 young sons, her wails echoing through the chamber. The scene was heartbreaking. Plato, though not explicitly present according to his own account due to illness he claimed, meticulously chronicled the events through the eyes of others who were there. We can imagine him later absorbing every detail, recreating the scene in his mind's eye, each sensory input sharpening his understanding. The raw sound of Xanthippe's grief, the anxious murmurs of the friends, the clinking of chains as Socrates was released from his fetters for the final time. Socrates comforted his wife, gently asking Crito to have her led away, knowing her distress would only make his resolve harder to maintain.
Then, with a calm that unnerved his companions, he began a final discourse on the immortality of the soul. He wasn't afraid of death, he explained, because death was merely the separation of the soul from the body. If the soul was immortal, then death was not an end, but a transition, a journey to a place where he could continue his philosophical quest among the truly wise. The air was heavy with the scent of human sorrow, yet Socrates spoke with an almost ethereal detachment, his voice steady, his gaze clear. The jailer, a man who had come to respect Socrates, entered the cell, his face etched with sorrow. He spoke with a trembling voice, expressing his regret, then departed, weeping. This was no ordinary prisoner. This was a man confronting death not with terror, but with profound equanimity. The officer charged with administering the hemlock arrived, carrying a small stone cup containing the dark, murky liquid. He explained the procedure. Socrates was to walk around until his legs felt heavy, then lie down as the poison worked its way up to his heart. The final, bitter cup was placed in his hand. Socrates took the cup. His hands, though aged, were steady. He examined the contents, not with trepidation, but with an almost scientific curiosity. "What do you say about making a libation from this to any god?" he asked, his voice calm amidst the choked sobs of his friends. The officer explained there was only enough for one dose. "Then we must pray to the gods to prosper our journey from this world to the next," Socrates said, before raising the cup to his lips. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the ragged breathing of his disciples. He drank the hemlock in one slow, deliberate gulp. There was no hesitation, no flinching, no outward sign of fear. The sight must have been agonizing for those who loved him. To witness such a pure act of self-sacrifice, such a profound affirmation of belief, would have been both inspiring and utterly devastating. The smell of the earthy, bitter concoction might have briefly permeated the air, a final acrid note in the sensory symphony of his departure. As instructed, he walked around, his legs growing heavier with each step. His friends, unable to control their grief, broke down, weeping uncontrollably. Crito, ever loyal, tried to compose himself. Socrates, lying down, admonished them gently. "What is this strange behavior? I sent the women away mainly for this very reason, that they should not behave in such an unbecoming way. For I have heard that one should die in silence. Be quiet then, and be firm." Even in his final moments, his focus was on maintaining dignity, on teaching, on exemplifying the very virtue he championed. The chill of the poison crept up his body. His feet and legs grew cold and numb. The officer would periodically check him, pressing his foot to see if he felt it. At last, the cold reached his abdomen. With his final breath, Socrates raised his head slightly and spoke his last enigmatic words to Crito. "Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Pay it, and do not neglect it." Asclepius was the god of healing, and a cock was traditionally offered in gratitude for recovery from illness. Was Socrates implying that death was a cure, a release from the illness of life, or perhaps from the illness of the body? It remains a profound mystery, a final, tantalizing question mark left by the greatest questioner of all time. Then, his eyes fixed, his body stilled. The old man, the gadfly of Athens, was gone. The secret was fully revealed, not in words, but in the unyielding integrity of his final act. Plato was not there to witness this exact moment, but the reports from those who were, Crito, Phaedo, Sabus, would have been meticulously recounted and absorbed. The image, reconstructed in his mind, became a foundational trauma, a philosophical wellspring.
Socrates' death was not just the end of a life. It was the ultimate proof of his mentor's philosophy, the terrifying beauty of conviction upheld to the bitter end. The injustice of it all, the profound moral clarity of Socrates' choice, became an unshakable bedrock for Plato's own thought. This profound moment, this agonizing finality, became the catalyst for Plato's own awakening. He had seen his beloved teacher, an embodiment of reason and virtue, condemned and executed by the very democracy he served. The scales fell from his eyes. He realized the inherent flaws in direct democracy, the dangers of mob rule, the precariousness of truth in a world governed by opinion.
The old man's secret, that living a life of uncompromising principle, of tireless philosophical inquiry, was the highest calling, even if it led to death, had unlocked Plato's own. Plato's entire philosophical enterprise became an attempt to build a city, a society where such an injustice could never happen again. He sought to define ultimate truths, to establish a rational basis for justice and morality that transcended the fickle opinions of the crowd. He envisioned the philosopher king, a ruler guided by wisdom, not by popular vote or personal ambition. His theory of forms, his allegory of the cave, his magnum opus, the Republic, all were born from the crucible of Socrates' death. The secret he unlocked was not merely intellectual. It was a deeply personal mission to justify his teacher's life and to redeem his death. He dedicated his life to articulating the very ideals that Socrates had embodied but never written down. Socrates, having written nothing himself, lives on almost entirely through the writings of Plato. His legacy is not in grand buildings or military victories, but in the enduring power of his questions, the moral courage of his example, and the transformative impact he had on his most brilliant student. The secret wasn't a hidden fact, but a living, breathing testament to integrity, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth. It was a secret passed from master to student, etched in the most tragic yet profound way imaginable. The impact of this secret continues to resonate today. Every time we question authority, every time we choose principle over expediency, every time we seek to understand ourselves and our world more deeply, we are, in a way, echoing Socrates. His willingness to die for his beliefs, to face down injustice with reason and dignity, remains a powerful testament to the human spirit's capacity for moral fortitude. It makes us ask, what are our own principles truly worth? Are they mere words, or are they woven into the fabric of our being, ready to be tested when the stakes are highest? The old man's secret, revealed in the calm act of drinking poison, wasn't just about how to die. It was about how to live. It taught Plato, and through him, all of Western civilization, that true knowledge is knowing yourself, and true freedom is living in accordance with that self-knowledge, even when it means standing alone against the world. It showed that character isn't what you do when people are watching, but what you do when the entire world has turned against you and the hemlock is at your lips. Foi naquele gole amargo, na serenidade inabalável do velho mestre, que o jovem Platão não apenas testemunhou o fim de uma vida, mas o nascimento de uma convicção. Não era uma morte qualquer, era a coroação de uma vida dedicada à busca incessante da verdade. Uma verdade que o Estado temeu e buscou silenciar. Para Platão, a cena deve ter sido um incêndio na alma, uma queima purificadora que desfez todas as ilusões. Ele viu a filosofia não como um mero exercício intelectual, mas como o caminho mais puro para a justiça e a realidade, um caminho que exigia coragem absoluta.
Aquele momento gravou na sua mente uma verdade fundamental. O mundo sensível, com suas injustiças e imperfeições, era apenas uma sombra pálida de algo maior, mais eterno. A morte de Sócrates não foi o fim da verdade, mas a prova irrefutável de sua existência indomável. Foi daí que brotou a sua própria grande revelação, o seu segredo desvendado. A existência de um mundo de formas perfeitas, ideais eternos que a alma humana é capaz de contemplar através da razão. Se Sócrates pôde morrer por princípios que não se viam, esses princípios deveriam ser mais reais que a própria vida e morte. É como se a cicuta não tivesse matado Sócrates, mas sim liberado sua essência para o reino das ideias, e Platão, ali, o capturou. Pense por um instante. Você já sentiu que algo invisível, uma ideia ou um valor era mais forte do que qualquer coisa material que pudesse tocar? Essa é a reverberação do que Platão começou a articular. A alegoria da caverna, uma das passagens mais icônicas de Platão, não é apenas uma metáfora sobre conhecimento, mas um eco direto do que ele viu acontecer com Sócrates. Prisioneiros acorrentados veem apenas sombras na parede, confundindo-as com a realidade. Um deles se liberta, sai da caverna, vê o sol, a verdadeira luz, e tenta voltar para contar aos outros. Mas é incompreendido, ridicularizado, talvez até morto por tentar mostrar a verdade. Não é a história de Sócrates escrita em outras palavras? O próprio Platão, carregando o peso daquela despedida, dedicou sua vida a tirar a humanidade da caverna, a convencer-nos de que há uma realidade mais luminosa e digna de ser perseguida. Ele não podia trazer seu mestre de volta, mas podia imortalizar sua mensagem, amplificá-la, transformá-la em um sistema filosófico que moldaria o pensamento ocidental por milênios. Sua academia em Atenas não era apenas uma escola, era um refúgio, um laboratório de mentes, um lugar onde o espírito de Sócrates podia continuar vivo, respirando e desafiando. Essa é a verdadeira medida de um legado, não as honras que se recebem em vida, mas as ideias que continuam a inspirar, as perguntas que continuam a ser feitas muito depois de o corpo virar pó. E essa é uma lição que perdura, não apenas para filósofos ou historiadores, mas para cada um de nós. Qual a sua caverna? Quais as sombras que você aceita como realidade? E o que você estaria disposto a arriscar para ver a luz? Essa é uma pergunta que Platão nos legou, nascida da coragem e do sacrifício de seu mestre. Se histórias como essa, que desvelam as profundezas da experiência humana, fazem você questionar suas próprias sombras, considere se inscrever para mais dessas jornadas. Um like, um compartilhamento são pequenos gestos, mas são como a luz de uma pequena vela que ajuda a dissipar a escuridão da caverna. São essas narrativas que nos lembram que há segredos que só se revelam quando temos a coragem de olhar para além do óbvio, para além da vida e da morte. É essa capacidade de transcender o imediato, de buscar um sentido maior na tragédia, que distingue a mente humana. O segredo que Sócrates revelou com sua morte libertou Platão para criar uma filosofia que nos convida a uma busca incessante pela verdade, mesmo que isso signifique confrontar o mundo e as suas convenções.
We uncover countless such stories, each with secrets waiting to be unearthed, each offering a unique lens through which to view our own lives. Socrates left no written word, yet his voice, amplified through Plato, echoes across time, a perpetual challenge to the unexamined life. His death wasn't an ending, but a philosophical detonation that ignited the minds of future generations. He proved that ideas, courageously lived and fiercely defended, are more potent than armies, more enduring than empires, and far more powerful than any poison. The secret was simple, yet terrifyingly profound. Live authentically, question everything, and be prepared to pay the ultimate price for your convictions. And in truly grasping that secret, Plato found the courage to build a world of thought that forever changed our own.